Hello, this is my talk on art and display in which I explain how art doesn't exist without a context, and how art contexts are worthless if they don't contain art, and that art isn't art unless it is, which is not what some people are saying is art, and how all experience is surface level. I, personally, only know two galleries. They are the Tate Modern and the Sevenoaks Kaleidoscope Gallery. They're not the only ones I've been in. UCA has the Herbert Read Gallery, for instance, but I've not visited that enough to have a grasp on how exactly its space distorts the art presented. To explain, the Kaleidoscope Gallery is run by local artists, so the work is by local amateurs and enthusiasts. As such, it is an overbearingly human environment. No matter how skilled, every work has been created by a person who often remains within the gallery. The enforced awareness of creation reduces much of the work to pure materiality, which lies in stark contrast to the Tate Modern, whose triumph consists of destroying the humanity of the paintings. The artworks are beacons of meaning, seemingly appearing from nowhere, complete with a uniform plaque stating names, countries, materials, and curator-prescribed importance. A man speed walks through a Bonnard exhibition, glancing at the plaques on the way through. Likely, I simply hate people. Not for who they are, but for what their presence brings. Inside the Herbert Read, one is constantly aware of the footsteps and mutterings from the hallway, aware that they may enter at any time and break your peaceful perusal. But it is too late for that. For your perception of them proves their ability to perceive you, and your pseudo-isolation is thwarted before it had a chance to evolve into the autistic utopia of total immersion. And this desire is mirrored when one reads. What one wants is to be pulled into the world of writing, to leave this one behind and accept the quiet stasis of what remains after an object has been finished. The marks have been made, what's done is done, and now you can spend time with what is left. And it is this self-imposed reality exile which constitutes my favourite gallery experience. It is 2:30 AM and I have spent an hour walking into town. I take a break to stand in the middle of a street and stare at a moving escalator in an empty Waitrose, and I think about Lucy and wasteful resin and all the lights that illuminate anything for no one. My muscles jerk and jolt and slide vaguely in time with the 1966 Top of the Pops recordings of Cat Stevens songs in my headphones, and I allow my attention to slide in and out of ideas of his genius and youth and Rod Stewart and Waitrose and lights and how he can perform a song written at 19, 47 years later, now with the reverence it's due. And this may lead my thoughts to the whispers and murmurs I've heard of Proust if I wasn't so taken aback by the odd lighting of a gallery across the street, and how it shines so perfectly on the smaller, darker painting beneath the most prominent one, and how the distance allows a recognition of objects with little appreciation of style, and how a better understanding close up loses me naive experience but introduces me to the idea that there is a perfect distance to view it from, which I spend a time trying to find. And while it's very interesting that a painting can turn a street into a gallery by dint of facing into it, it's not the only time this happens. Your living room is transformed into an art context every time the telly is turned on, but a gallery does not become an art context until it contains paintings. So now we have the question of what art can transform into an art context. A book can transform a comfortable chair, but not a train. A movie can convert an entire cinema, but not a web page. This is why Adam Chodzko's Through Hole I Blind Ooh Through Hole We See is wacky, by asking you to hold objects that moves the art from film into living sculpture, and changes the art context from being your screen and your head, more consciously into being your screen and your head and your body and the space around it. Not that Chodzko's an expert. Orson Welles once said, "What is on screen is dead," and Chodzko's way of diverting you from one screen to another, from live Zoom call to pre-recorded and edited video without removing the living man's forgetfulness or humming or hawing, ignores the benefits of each medium, forgets that a video can't contain a person. Artists' websites fall into the same traps. Or they would if they were trying to represent art. See, you enter what you think may be an art context only to discover that what you have instead is a record. Something that has been, no longer is. And that sort of thing is not for anyone. Imagine buying a book of Cézanne paintings only to find it simply exists as a list of titles and dates. That list is to paintings what photographs are for sculptures, because you are being asked to imagine the art rather than to see it. And I won't talk Derrida because I don't understand it, but it seems that a website finding worth in referring to something it cannot contain, nor truly tries to, is worthless. At the very least, it does not contain art. At the very least, it is not for me. Maybe it's for a researcher or an employer, but that's why I prefer Miniclip.com, because it contains the art it says it does, or did. Adobe Flash has stopped being supported, and so now the games, while they exist on files hosted on servers, can't be played through the browser itself. But that's the nature of change. Dilapidation is inevitable. Many people try to avoid this by writing autobiographies, erecting statues, by attaining self-sufficiency. On Everest Pipkin's website, they've shifted from outsourcing their hosting to NeoCities and YouTube to their own website, ifyoulived.org/index.html, which is cool and interesting as a way of taking back the internet from Facebook, Google, Twitter, and Reddit. And it is so fucking important to get away from those websites because they make the internet homogenous. The way that each YouTube video has the same frame gives it similar worth. Tweets and Facebook news work the same way. Importance is flattened out by the space they share. This is why I look for scanned ebooks rather than text PDFs. Imagine an internet without templates. And let me tell you, I am so guts and glory passionate about Oberzan and his website for exactly that reason. It is emblematic of his self-styled camp without irony, while doing only what is necessary. Oberzan's works keep you firmly planted in your body as it asks you to invest in the art as presented and into the chaotic referentiality and purity of himself. And the problem we all come across is that art must be delineated to be given its status, but works best without borders. So conscious of the inherent mediation, Rivette ejects you from his films with a jarring final shot. Chodzko performs a similar transition by asking people to breathe deeply and drink a glass of water, a namby-pamby solution if you ask me. I am instead going to project a black screen and a harsh noise, a pseudo-status represented without being.